Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today we are thinking about storytelling. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is a thinker, and that is what we are thinking about today. So I have two special guests here, Itto and Mekiya, who's going to help us think about this in another way. So thank you so much for coming on to my show, sharing your time and your perspective with me. Let's just go ahead and dive right in. When you hear the words storytelling, what does that make you think about?
Lauren, you want to go first?
Yeah. Hi. Thank you so much for having me and for having us. We're excited to share our perspective and what when we think about storytelling. I personally think that the world runs in stories. Stories are what governs our world, from marketing to commerce, business, social media, everything. A lot of people and businesses don't tell stories. They think in stories, but they are not aware that stories are what's driving everything they do and everything we do as humans. And if we all come to know and acknowledge the power of storytelling and the power of stories in general, I think there will be a lot of peace. We are going to accomplish a lot as a society, and we're going to have a lot of communities come together instead of having people and countries and groups divided, because stories help us understand a lot of things that we have in common as human beings, instead of what divides us.
And if we are telling the same stories, we're more likely to be able to communicate with one another, because at the most fundamental level, even when we process information cognitively, we're thinking in terms of narrative. We're not seeing objects. We're seeing what you do with an object, how you relate to an object, how you relate to another person. And as Itto said, you're not always conscious of that process, and it makes it very easy for two people to be telling different stories without being aware of that. And that's where a lot of the conflict that we experience comes from. So I think a lot of the work that we do is making people aware of the fact that we are all telling stories all the time, and asking the question, what story is it that you're telling? And is it the story that you want to be telling? Is it the story that is most beneficial to you, to the people around you, to your community? And how does the story end? Because if you know how the story that you're telling ends, then you can make a decision about whether you want to be telling that story or a different one.
Yeah, that's very valid. You guys bring up really good points, and to the point where we don't really think in that level when it comes to storytelling, how we're doing it continuously on a basis where it's so natural to us. You know what I mean? It just comes at ease that we don't even know what's happening. You could do it in a business deal. You can do it in just a sales, like just trying to sell somebody a burger. You know what I mean? Somewhere on the street, something so simple, or trying to get your child to go to bed. And things of that aspect. If you really think about it, you are always telling a story, always trying to get somebody to relate to you in some way, shape, or form. And I know you say this is what you teach. So what made you realize like this is something that you had to teach other people?
It's for me. I grew up in oral storytelling, and I survived in stories. I told stories to everyone and everything, including animals and rocks and everything. Um, I made sense of the world when I was a child and a teenager, and by telling stories. I have seen the power of storytelling in my life as well as those around me. I have seen stories bring people together. I have seen stories divide people and communities. And
Yeah.
I loved stories since I was a kid. And when I went to school, I decided to focus on storytelling, despite of having studied different. I majored in different fields like linguistics and literature, but I've been always a storyteller, and I was born like that, I guess.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really didn't have much besides stories growing up, because I grew up very isolated. I was homeschooled for most of my life. My parents had rejected mainstream society and dropped out of it. So even though I was living in a particularly rural area, I had very, very minimal contact with peers with the outside world, especially when I was prepubescent, and even when I was a teenager, it was still fairly minimal. And my relationship with the outside world was all through books, and I loved audiobooks, which is about as close as you get to an oral storytelling tradition in the U.S. And we have that in common. And I didn't realize this until pretty recently in my life, but I think if it weren't for those books and those stories, I wouldn't have been able to develop into a functioning human being, because I just had too little contact with other people. But I had contact with people through fiction, through narrative, and those, I was socialized by books, you could say.
Yeah, I could see that, because books allows you into another world, allows you the what ifs, and that's the beauty of writing, and just allowing your imagination go anywhere, because somebody may pick up that book who may be in a desolate area, but they are allowed to escape their reality by just exploring the unknown. And Ita, you were talking about how this just came naturally to you, and you were just a born storyteller, always just got lost, and it's helped you accept your reality. And I think that's a beautiful thing, because I've done that as well. I've always imagined my what ifs, because especially during the hard times growing up, and it's easier to manage your reality when you go through harder times as a child. So being able to have that storytelling mentality at such a young age, and being able to tap into it is something that sadly not a lot of people are aware that is an option. You know what I mean? And I think if we allow children to realize, like, it's an option for you to get creative and you start a story in your mind or out in paper, like, the what can come out of someone's mind is amazing. You know what I mean? And I think in your opinion, what is the hardest thing that for people to tap into this skill?
Oh, there's a lot. I don't think there's only one thing. For children, there's of course devices that families just want to have kids but not be responsible. Just give a device to your kid and leave them play video games, or just watch videos, which is worse than even playing video game, and not letting them be free and say whatever they think, whatever they feel. I remember when I was a kid, I was beaten many times because I told some weird stories that made family members embarrassed in front of neighbors or something. Censorship for adults as well as young people. Nowadays, we have a lot of issues where if you just say, hey, I hate tomatoes, and someone else says, I love tomatoes, that person might not talk to you anymore just because you say you hate tomatoes. It's now we're at a point where words are being used as weapons instead of loving and celebrating words, and seeing that the power of words, and using it in a positive way, and stop worrying about what people say, how they say it, and what about if I was the only one in the room whose name is Itto, or like for example, I'm from Morocco, and when people say, how do you want me to pronounce your name? Well, that's fine. You can say it however you want. I don't have an issue with that. Or like if I say something that is, quote unquote wrong, just because I've never exposed to that that thing, and like people just
that culture.
It's easy to judge one another, and that's basically a poison to killing the most powerful tool that helped our ancestors survive even in the hard times when we didn't have anything. Now we have tools, we have podcasts, we have everything to actually make storytelling a center of our lives as a human being, and yet we are trying to push it away and try to deny that wonderful tool that we have as human creatures.
Well, it's unfortunate because we are all being used to tell other people's stories all the time. We're being cast as minor characters in narratives that we often are not privy to understand what the purpose of the narrative is or where it's going or who crafted it. And it's very difficult when you've been in that position all your life to realize that you actually can be a narrator as well. And that's where you're going to derive your power from and your agency. So I think that first step is usually the most difficult step, is realizing, wait a second, I don't have to accept the terms and conditions that are being foisted on me. This isn't an Apple product. This is my life. Like I can determine where this is going. I don't have to wait for someone else to do that for me.
Or people say, I haven't accomplished enough. Like, I don't have a story to tell. I'm like, you've lived enough. Look, just Anne Frank, she was 13 when she died.
I think it was Jane Austen who said, if you live to be 15, you have enough story to tell for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful quote. That is a beautiful. You know what? While we're talking about quotes, I actually picked the quote and I want to hear your opinion on it. So the quote goes, "The purpose of storyteller is not to tell you how to think, but to give you questions to think upon." What does what does that quote make you think about?
I love that. I often say that even though fiction is not always true, I don't mean literally, I mean, even though fiction does not always contain truth, fiction is the only place you can still find truth, because narratives that are presented as nonfiction, they're almost always, if they're not purely propagandistic, they have some agenda driving them. And fiction is a space where you can think through the questions that you would have to think through if you were having that experience that the characters are having, without the stakes being quite so high. And it's one of the only spaces left where we get to do that. I really like that quote. Who was that from?
No, it's anonymous. All of my quotes are anonymous. I like to keep it anonymous because it keeps people away from being focused on who said what. You know what I mean? Because sometimes we get so focused on who said it that we will reject the words because of who said it. You know what I mean? And I'm like, no, the words still have power. And it's like you were saying earlier, Itto, like words have so much power that when we don't know how to identify them and within ourselves, then we reject them automatically and we don't receive the nutrients that we really need with those words, because words can give us life. You know what I mean? Words can damage us, you know, words can kill us. And people don't realize how much words can really affect our lives. And I think one of the biggest things that I love also about this quote is that we need to tap into critical thinking. You know what I mean? This is a skill that has been lost with now the new generations, because back to like what you were saying, children are not thinking. Children are not forced to play. Children are not forced to imagine. Children are just forced to just look and receive and consume and consume and consume. And when they no longer consume, they feel like, okay, where am I going to get this information from, or where I'm going to get this high or whatever that's going on within them? And it's like, no, we need to like break this. You know, we need to stop. Like I stopped my kids. No, my family knows, don't give my children no tablets, don't give them no phones. My children are not allowed to have TV time until after 2 p.m. Like after they played, after they napped, after everything, like just a short time between dinner time, and then right before we go to bed, and then upstairs we're reading a book. You know what I mean? So because they've changed so much from that aspect, because I had to take control of my kids, because I was like letting my husband like lead the way, but he was just stuffing them with electronics and TV, and my kids were their tantrums were terrible. Like their emotions were all over the place, and I was like, no, we are not going to do this. Like I could see my kids falling into these traps of these iPad kids. You know what I mean? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to have this. So once I cut it off, oh my goodness, change. It took them like 2 weeks to like get them off of that system to test me. But I was, no, I'm not. Mama's going to stand her ground. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to deal with this. So now it's to the point where it's like they know it's time. When the TV's off, okay, they play, they be adventurous, they climb, they do whatever. I don't care if you flipping couches. You know what I mean? Like go ahead and flip that couch, but do not. You know what I mean? Do not turn on that TV, because like there's gonna be a time when you're gonna need that TV, and when you have that TV, I need you to focus when it's that time. And it's like people don't know how to pay attention to their surroundings. You know what I mean? And when you go out in public, like kids need to pay attention to their surroundings so they don't get kidnapped, they don't get hit by a car, they don't, you know what I
Mhm.
mean, they're paying attention. And like kids don't do that nowadays because they're always so focused on a screen. So that's why I love this storytelling, and we're talking about it because I think it's something that people really need to remember. So I guess I ask you guys, like, what is the best story that you ever heard?
Mm. A
That's
lot.
a
I
thinker.
don't. Yeah, I have a lot of stories that I've heard and I love and I admire. So I have I love philosophy. I'm influenced by Western philosophy, and I love, for example, one of the authors who influenced me is um, Fyodor Dostoevsky and all of his fiction and his stories. But I wouldn't say he's the only one. Like I have a lot of I have oral stories that I still tell sometimes and remember and laugh. Have my own life experience, and yeah, like it's really hard to just choose one.
Right. With
Yeah.
so many, how could you choose one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I hate to cop out the same way, but I also can't choose. I think you need different stories at different moments in your life, sometimes even different days. But I think different stages in life, you need to see different narratives unfold. And yeah, the things that were meaningful to me yesterday will not necessarily be as meaningful tomorrow, and vice versa. I think it's about exposing yourself to as many stories as you can without overloading yourself, which is a difficult balance to strike because we are all sort of always a little bit over that limit all the time these days in terms of
Yeah.
absorbing information and narrative, et cetera, et cetera. But if you can filter out the things that, like you said, filtering out the TV, filtering out the iPads for your kids, then there's more space for the types of stories that can really nurture your growth and your thinking. And once you create that space, just fill it with as much as possible so that you can increase your likelihood of finding the thing you happen to need in that particular moment.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I think that was beautifully stated because life is very subjective. And when we forget to live in the present moment, we are constantly in the past or constantly in the far, far future. But when it reminds us to get back in that present, and when you are in that present and you remember those stories or you are listening to a story, then you're able to be like, oh, let me save this for my memory bank for later, because then you'll get that aha moment in the shower, like, oh, so this is what it means, or that's how it correlates. You know what I mean? You can have those
Mm-hmm.
moments. And I love that that's how you said, like, it's hard to just choose one when every day, every moment, every second is different. And you're right. I mean, if you really think about it, it really is. And I'm one that right now my main practice is trying to be more present in my moment, in my day, and in my now. And I'm realizing that right there, what you said, like it's always going to be different because every second will be different when you realize like you're not stuck in a rut. You know what I mean? You're not stuck in something that people like to claim life is, because when you realize that you are in the now, you have the power and it's what you want to do. So that is something that is truly, truly to think about. So I have to ask you guys, what is something in your life that you are grateful for?
I'm grateful for everything. Grateful to have my husband, be together, work together. Grateful to be alive and to be creative and to have you know, skills to be able to tell stories I want to tell, to help other people tell their stories. I'm basically grateful for countless things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm grateful we found each other because life was it was very difficult and very lonely before we found each other. At least for me, I'm not going to speak for you. Um, and it's opened up a whole set of new opportunities for us, and it's enabling us to open up a whole set of new opportunities for the people we work with. So yeah, I would, more than anything, I'm grateful to have found Ito.
Oh, I'm sorry, but I have to ask, how did you guys find each other from a homeschool boy to a Moroccan woman? How do you guys, you know what I mean? How do you guys find each other?
Oh, it's a good story. We met in Arkansas of all places.
Arkansas. Goodness, girl,
Arkansas.
what are you doing in Arkansas? I would never expect a Moroccan woman to be in Arkansas.
Well, I was neither. I came to the US in 2017 on a Fulbright scholarship.
Okay.
I don't know. For those who are not familiar, it's a State Department program. It's an exchange program where basically brings scholars, students, and professionals from different countries to the U.S., whether to study, do research, or teach, and also Americans go abroad for the same things. So I came here to pursue my MA at the University of Arkansas. When I heard about Arkansas, I didn't know that Arkansas was in the US because for some reason in my American culture class, we even learned about Oklahoma, Alaska,
all the river systems,
the rivers and like valleys, whatever. But then they didn't teach us anything about Arkansas, even that it existed as a state. And when I received a letter that I was going to the University of Arkansas, I was like, is that in Europe or what? Like, they're like, yeah, that's in Arkansas. So I came, I didn't know anyone.
Well, and one of your friends told you that they don't speak English in Arkansas. You know, they all talk funny down there. But she thought she was like, oh no, I just spent all this time learning English. I'm gonna have to learn Arkansan now.
But then I found out that they spoke English and it was fine. But yeah, we met. You can tell how we met.
Yeah, we met actually her second day in country for the first time, but she doesn't remember that meeting because she was so exhausted and overwhelmed from traveling and preparing for days and weeks. And I was also getting my master's degree in Arkansas. I was doing an MFA in creative writing, and I was volunteering with a language school, which also ran these programs for international students who were already fluent, like Itto, but they did like orientation programs for Fulbright scholars. They did a number of different non-pedagogical programs, non-language-based programs. And I was volunteering with them and helping to set up events and driving their vans around. And that was how we met for the first time. And I remember being just blown away by Itto's story because right off the bat, you don't hear a story like hers every day. And then I kept seeing her around the academic building that both of our departments were in, and we had a number of mutual friends because I did a lot of volunteer work and with the international community. I worked as a tutor in the writing center and worked with a lot of clients who were helping or who needed help because English was not their first language, including some Fulbright scholars. So there was a bit of overlap in our social circles, and then eventually people kept trying to put us in touch, and eventually we ended up becoming friends, and then later more than friends. But that was how we ended up together.
That is cute. I love that story because it just shows like, oh my goodness, the innocence of not knowing and just striving, like going to an adventure. Like you had no idea you were in Morocco. You're like, yeah, where's this Arkansas? Like that is so funny that they didn't teach you about Arkansas. Like we in the United States, we kind of just ignore Arkansas too. It's there, but we don't like to cross it. Like we know it's there. We'll claim it if we have to. I'm kidding. But no, that is so funny that they didn't acknowledge that. And if I was you, I would have done the same thing. I'm like, okay, so I guess I'm going to some other country somewhere, I would have been like, is this in South America? Like, yeah, I don't know. So that's funny. And the fact that you guys were just intermingled in some way, shape, or form constantly is like, yeah, fate was most definitely with you too. And that's good that you guys found each other. You guys most definitely sound peaceful, like you guys have a peaceful energy when you guys talk together, and that's very rare when you are not used to that, you know what I mean? But it's beautiful to recognize because, man, people need to recognize that, yeah, love is real out there. Don't be fooled by what people think like it's gone, or only from the past. Like, no, love is out there. You just need to wait for your time,
Oh, and she sounds peaceful now, but she's very hyper in the mornings. It's just that it's 5 p.m.
Right, she's shutting down. So
exactly.
I am an early bird, so I'm like awake, working by 4 a.m. I'm like ready to conquer the world.
Oh, I'm with you too, girl. By 4 a.m., 4 5, I'm always up and about, ready to conquer the world too. Come 5 p.m. too. I'm with you too. I'm running down too, because usually this is the time I'll start sitting on the couch, relaxing, give myself an hour. Come 7 o'clock, I'm ready to be upstairs and starting my nighttime routine. So yes.
Yeah.
I'm with you, girl. I am with you. So I guess to start wrapping up the show, because man, I'm so disappointed, but time is catching up to us. What can
Mhm.
be some lasting words of wisdom that you guys can keep leave us off with to keep on thinking?
Um, we shouldn't be afraid of words.
Mm.
We shouldn't be uh, denying our own stories, because by that we deny our own existence. We should be proud of everything, our failures, our mistakes, our success, and tell our stories without fear. And we should also acknowledge and listen to other people's stories and not question or judge when someone tells a story that whether A, we think is not true, or B, we think, why are they telling their stories but not but why are they telling their stories and we're not telling our stories? Because if we hear someone tells their story, it should be seen as a good thing, as something to follow, as something to imitate, not something to hate or be jealous of. We have to celebrate and acknowledge our stories, other people's stories, and know the power of storytelling, whether it is our stories or other people's stories.
No.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
always ask yourself every day, every hour, what story are you telling? And whose story is that really? Is it your story, or is it a story that someone else is telling through you? And how does it end? And is that where you want to end?
Yeah. Oh, I love this. Oh my goodness. I feel like I get to keep talking to you guys about other life things. Oh my goodness. Yes, because you guys talk in such a deep level that I love this. I need people to stop thinking on the surface level when it comes to just storytelling. Like, oh yes, once upon a time there was a tree and then the tree died. The end. No, it's deeper than that, you know? So when you listen to somebody's story, it's like, yes, we need to listen because there's wisdom in these words. You know what I mean? It's like, oh my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, pay attention because this is the juice. This is the good stuff. Because, man, we need to start thinking about this differently. We need to start listening differently because it was like earlier, like you said, Mekiya, you said how it's for a different time. You know what I mean? We receive this for now, but we may need it later, 3, 6, 7 months. And you got that moment that's like, yes, this feeds my soul. And it's just, oh yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes. Yes. That's it. That's all I got for you guys, ladies and gentlemen. So if you guys want to know more about Ida and Mekiya, please check out their website. I have access to theirs on mine. You can find their lovely logo on my website so that you can continue on thinking with all that they have to share with the world. So, with that being said, bye.